Is that the height of your interchange?
Can we make a start, ladies and gentlemen, please? A couple of matters of things before we go into formal business. Obviously, everybody, I think, is aware that our clerk is not very well. I spoke to him for the latest update at 5 o'clock tonight. In himself, he sounded quite fine, but he is seeing another specialist in the next week or 10 days, he's hoping. But his life is a little on hold, as he put it at the moment, which is only to be expected. So that's that matter. And before we then start into the main business, I would like to take the opportunity to have a minute's silence for the sad passing of two... David, just in time. We'll go over that side tonight, David. Just to have a minute's silence before we start our formal business for the sad passing of two of our former councillors. Peter Delosso, beg your pardon, who was a councillor for 6 years and chaired for 1 year, sadly died, and Roland Humphrey, who was also a councillor but for 3 years. And obviously we pass our condolences on to their respective families. So if we could just have a minute's silence, please. We'll ask you all to stand. Thank you. David, I don't think you want to say anything, you're just here to listen to the presentation, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have a presentation from another broadband provider who've come in triplicate. So if you'd like to speak for, can I say 10 minutes max, please, or is that too restricted?
That shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you.
So yes, I'm Ben. I'm from Gigaclear, and I've also brought two colleagues from Talent, who are our main civils partner, who are going to do the actual digging in the ground. As you might be aware, we're delivering rural broadband as part of the government's BDUK rollout. So that's receiving some subsidy from central government, so that we can make sure that we can deliver as much broadband to as many isolated rural properties as possible across Devon and Somerset for our particular bit of the project. So we've been working on a scheme that we've called Green, simply because that's where the cabinet is, but that covers bits of Brent Knoll Parish as well as various other surrounding parishes. I've got a big map so that you get some sense of the sort of the size of this particular bit of the project. And then I can...
Sorry, can I just ask, are you local yourselves?
Myself?
No, the company.
The company is based in Abingdon, but we tend to... I mean, I'm based in Taunton myself. We have the local office.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Would you like to hold it up, Pen, rather
I can do, yeah.
If you do
I can do that. I should have got a smaller map.
Just display yourself.
So it runs all the way from Breensand and you know, right up at Breen Point up there. Thanks. That's much easier. Right down, and then the southern end is the bit that just sort of runs into Brent Knoll Parish itself. So it is quite a large area that we're covering with fibre optic cable. I suppose really there's good news firstly, which is that you're one of the first projects that we're doing, and so there's been a lot of time and effort put into trying to get this to work. Then there's the bad news side, which I'll just talk about briefly, which is, unfortunately, we're in a position where this section of road here, Wick Road, Breen Road, Rectory Way, has recently been resurfaced, and consequently the council don't really want us digging it up again, which is reasonable. But that does mean that we're having to search for an alternative route, but not just an alternative route, an alternative method of making the build happen. And we've explored a huge number of things, and Bob was good enough to sit with us yesterday for a bit while we talked through some of the options we've been reviewing. But at this stage, I'm not able to tell you when the project will go live, simply because of that stretch of road. And the cable, this possibly isn't the best map for fibre optic cables. It shows you the road closures and things, but to give you sort of some idea, so the main cable runs along that stretch of road and then down into Brent Knoll. And so the problem we have is that if we can't build that section there, or if we can't find a way round that section there, Brent Knoll ends up being a section that can't be lit up with fibre optic light. So as I say, we're working on every possible option to make sure it happens, but I can't give you a time scale and say this is when it will definitely be turned on. And that is part of the reason I thought it was important to come and talk to you this evening. And I will now hand over to Martin and to Alex, as I say, from Telent, who are our main contractors.
Okay, well, basically to give you a bit of an overview about how it all works and how it all goes together and how your broadband arrives at the property. Basically we start with a design that Jubilee send us, and from that we generate this. We've got a company that goes around that manage all the traffic management, so they'll walk around the area looking at the widths of the roads, what any complications that might arise with traffic lights and schools, crossings and schools and things like that. Then they'll put the TM plan together. This is the overview of it. There's normally a bigger pack that goes behind it, albeit on not such a large format, that details each of these individual numbers. The red ones are closures, the purple ones are private, the blue ones are just traffic management where there's two-way lights. So as you can see, there's quite a few. This one's not too bad for two-way lights. Quite often it's the majority of its closures, which is unfortunate, but it's just because the roads are so narrow, especially the further you get down south. So we start with that. We then go through building each of these numbers as a job pack on our systems, which we then can give to our contractors to go and complete the build. What we actually do is, the way it all works, is you'll see the little green cabinets go up on the side of the road. They're all connected back to the big cabinet, which is powered where the main light comes into the area. And they're all connected to that through this stuff. This is just plastic sleeve really holding all the tubes together. And down the tubes we then blow the fibre optic cable, and then that then blows to the little green cabinet on the side of the road. And then from there we get what we call a McDonald's straw, because it looks like a McDonald's straw along there. That's the drop tube, which is then connected to the properties. So anybody that then takes up service, they then blow the fibre from the property back to the little drop cabinet, plug it in, and away you go.
And it's important, I think, to say that because we're using the government subsidy to make sure that we can reach as many properties as possible, we are building what's called an open network, which means that you can buy from any provider that's on our network. You can buy internet from them, so there's more of a range of choice and therefore competition, and so you should get a better deal than a closed network where you're restricted to one provider. So we have to offer, as part of this, space within our ducting for other providers to be able to give you internet as well.
Yeah. The advantage of being on phase 2 of the BDUK programme, effectively, is because you're more remote and you can't get as high a speed from the copper, you actually then get a better service from the fibre that's provided to the premises, so you actually end up with a higher broadband speed than you would if it's through the traditional copper method. So there you go, that's what it's all about. It looks fairly rigid. It comes on a reel of 1,500 metres to 1.5–2 metre reel. when it comes off, it's a bit like an uncontrollable snake, and it's a lot more flexible than it looks. But it does go in the ground in a solid straight line.
You are going to be putting in infrastructure in, irrespective.
Yes,
Right.
that's correct.
Assuming you can get that
Yeah,
sorted.
yeah. That's
And
what
that
the problem
infrastructure, would that be to the properties irrespective?
is. Yes, so every property that we go past has what's called a POT outside, a point of
Point
termination.
of termination, yeah.
So they'll be just off the property, because obviously
Yeah.
we can't access private
But
property.
it won't actually go into the property, it'll have to be subsequently,
That's
that
correct,
link that you
yeah.
said,
Yeah.
so straw would have
So
to
then
go
when
in.
you talk to whoever you want to buy your broadband service off, they'll be the ones that link you up to the property.
And therefore, that's where the additional cost may.
Possibly, I mean, I have to be careful because I'm not allowed to promote the GigaClear ISP service, so please, I'm not doing that. But GigaClear, for example, offers a free connection,
Right.
and I suspect other ISPs will do the same.
Sorry.
Do I understand that you're duplicating the fibre optics which BT have already laid? So you're sort of laying it along the same roads in much the same way. So why do we need two lots of...
Yeah, so the BT cables don't go to all the remote properties that we'll be serving.
Can you not use some of the BT fibre cables which other companies do?
It's not as simple as that because we're contracted to deliver to these other properties. So the government has said these are the properties that need linking up, and so that's what we're delivering.
I think there's also the complication, John, bearing in mind that BT's fibre optic doesn't go everywhere, it only goes down, it goes to a cabinet.
Just so far, yes.
And then
Yes.
copper cables to the property.
Yes.
Yeah.
What sort of speed are you offering, or potentially offering?
Up to 1 gigabyte up and down symmetrical.
So that's 1,000, is that 1,000?
1,000 megabits a second, yeah.
That would be the top end.
Yes.
But the capability for expansion in the future?
We anticipate as technology grows, this should be able to cover that. So our based on what our technology experts think at head office, they're suggesting that this should do for the next 50 years of technological
As
advancement.
somebody who went to school in Abingdon and lived in Abingdon for a long time, well, on the outskirts of Abingdon for a long time, you're experts in technology. And they did strange things in Abingdon, I'm just conscious now. When royalty appear, they throw cakes off the jail, don't they? And that sort of thing in the market square, so, you know. Anyway, we'll digress. I'm just mindful that because of the beat, I mean, I'm not pouring oil on troubled water, but I'm just conscious. BT have got an infrastructure in at the moment, and certainly where I live, going down the copper cable, I'm at the end of the village towards East Brent.
Yeah.
So down the end of Burton Row, almost where Brent Knoll finishes. I'm quite happily getting 50 meg through that system, which is more than adequate for old age pensioners.
Indeed.
And
If it's been provisioned under BDUK, then it wouldn't also be covered by this,
no,
because this is phase 2 of BDUK, which is from the government.
So it's trying to help people who get less
Yeah.
than 5.
So if it was already delivered under the
I don't know how it was
BDUK
delivered, to be honest.
phase.
All I know
Yeah.
is that when we had the BT man come and talk to us, I don't know, a year, 18 months ago, he was trying to explain that people actually near the green cabinet actually get slower speeds than if you sort of 500 yards down a copper cable as well. But anyway, that's what I don't understand.
I was only really just going to comment on that. In terms of this sort of area, the bulk of Brent Knoll, the bulk of East Brent were done in phase 1, so they got the commercial and the phase 1 decent speeds. Limpsham, these are now looking at places like Wick Lane,
Yeah,
the
if you,
far end of Middle Street, that sort of thing.
If
They
you look
didn't
on-
get connected to the BT one, so that's why they're in phase 2.
yeah, if you look at this bit, there's East Brent there.
Yes.
So if that was delivered on phase 1, that's why there's no
Yes.
original TM around there. It's very much more the remote areas where we're delivering that.
But I'm just conscious that BT are not seem too keen to push the speeds up at the moment, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is another competitor that has come to see us, that's all.
Okay.
Yes, I would imagine there is. because they seem to be doing quite a good job of getting to parishes a couple of months before I do.
No,
this is-
I'm just conscious of
yeah.
that.
But as I say, I think if, assuming it's what I'm thinking of, I think what they're offering is a closed network, as I was saying, so you would have to buy your internet from them, whereas this is an open network, so it is a different product.
Right.
And I think we're offering faster speeds, but as you say, 50 meg is probably good enough for most domestic use at the moment. But as
They were offering a minimum of 200.
yeah, exactly. But as things change, I mean, I know I was hearing the other day that a bit like BBC Three is only on to an online service. I think we're doing the same with BBC Two. So over time, we suspect funds will end up kind of not going down phone-wise, but going down the internet as well. So I think in terms of future-proofing the village, this is a good.
Cost. I mean, I know it's difficult to say, but are you, your organisation, would that be a cost comparator with BT, or is it going to be more expensive, or do you think it would be cheaper? I don't know.
I think most of the ISPs that are currently bought into our network offer similar kind of speeds to what BT offer. So similar kind of prices.
And that's similar price.
Yeah, similar prices.
And that would be with a telephone deal as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, from what I recall. But as I say, I'm not on the sales side.
No.
Almost deliberately, so that I can't risk accidentally saying too much.
So what areas of the country are you already installed in, if any?
Yeah, so there's already quite large networks in Oxfordshire, which is obviously where the company started. We are, in addition to doing Devon and Somerset contracts, we're also contracted in Gloucestershire, Wiltshire,
So
Herefordshire.
what brought you to sort of Bream?
Well, it was the government contract. The government contract said this is one of the places where there's a bulk of residents who are getting less than 5 megabits a second, and that is currently considered to be the minimum acceptable speed.
So if you get into an area, you're doing one small area, say into Bream, so what systems are you locking into with your fibre?
Well,
You don't cover the whole country with your fibre, do you?
no, so we'll, I think from memory, and Martin might actually know better than that, I think where we are is, so there's a connection to City Fibre, which is one of the big companies in Bristol, which then comes across the Clifton Suspension Bridge through the Abbottsley area, down through Wraxall, eventually through Wolvers Hill into Lyncham, and then across the Green. So it all sort of links together. So there are a whole bunch of cabinet areas that we're building that will all link together and form full network.
Quite separate to BT.
Yes.
Yeah, there's several take-off points from other suppliers, so you're not restricted then by one provider, because if all your eggs are in one basket, if that provider goes down, then you lose the whole network. Whereas if you've got links in from other providers, you can still loop through. Makes it more resilient. City Fibre is one of them. There are other wholesale providers.
Vodafone's another one
Yeah.
that I know we're using.
Time period? Yeah, for commencement, potential commencement?
Well, the bill's actually started,
Right.
but obviously there's the complications with the Section 58 works, the road restrictions, which we need to try and work around.
So, but at the time, if that was successfully sorted, for the whole programme, I mean, we're talking a year, 18 months?
Yeah, it's probably around about 12 months before it'll get finished and get light to the area and be able to service the...
And are we digging up trenches, are you putting moulds in?
Some of it won't be mould. The Section 58 bits, we're having to look at various options, one of which is directional drilling. It's not a mould, it's a drill that goes under and comes up to avoid the actual surface damage to the road network. We don't mould it purely, well, we don't put it in like you see some things, they go in the pneumatic mould, it goes dun 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 dun. We don't use those because it's so rigid. It won't go in those.
Yes, we had an occasion where somebody did that recently to link up a solar farm to the main take-off of power, and that caused some damage to the road, even though in theory it shouldn't, but the actual impacts would fall in cracks on the edge of the road.
Yeah, a lot of the roads around the area have got what they call the geotech mesh under the surface. And it's basically a crisscross network that is below or in the actual tarmac layer that binds the top road surface together. Council can't tell us which road it's on until we find it, but I know certainly there's some in the Breen area, which we then have to look for alternative methods of going through it because it's very costly to repair, or lots of repair to maintain once you've cut through it. So that's another one where we have to look for alternative methods of going up the carriageway. Because if we do go up the carriageway, you have to cut through it, cut it back, and then mend it, and then before you can re-tarmac it.
And a final question from me, that on that map it was clear, in Brent Knoll itself, have you got any idea of actual road closures as opposed to traffic lights? The only reason I say that is just Brent Knoll is virtually a one-road village.
So through the main road through Brent Knoll doesn't have any traffic management on it at all, but then the roads going north towards Breen and west towards Barrow, those do have some two traffic lights.
Actual closures.
The road going north towards Breen does have a closure on it,
Okay.
but we're being very careful to not close the roads or use traffic lights during peak season for holidays.
I think there has already been some road closure notices come through from county where it's given a number of months hence, and it'll be a certain number of days within that. Middle Street was mentioned because that's one road they're going down, and also Wick Lane.
There's
There's no TM plan.
You just think Station Road, Burton Road and Brent Street, those are the main ones we wouldn't particularly welcome actual closures.
Shouldn't affect any of the major ones.
Because, you know, otherwise it's a 6 mile detour just to go from one end of the village to the other.
No, as I say, it doesn't. We don't anticipate any closures necessary on any of those roads.
Okay. Has anybody else got any questions?
No.
Yeah, in that case, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Of the various videos you're doing, which will be the first one that will actually deliver it to the house and go live?
They'll all go live at the same time. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Assuming that depends on that road closure.
Just
Yeah, so
what day will they go live?
because of where the cabinets is, they're all expected to go
None of them go live, no one is.
So we might be able to get something live so Roxbridge will be Roxbridge is the next build over. Pretty much, so we go live very shortly. Yes, oh yeah, it will be. I think we're from memory, but I think we're saying 3 or 4 months time, Roxbridge should be completed.
For 3 years, they should be out.
I mean, worst case scenario is 2020 when the resurfacing finishes. But
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did I ever tell you about the time I was in school in You already know that.
It's an alternative to
All that?
Yes, in every single
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Very interesting, thank you.
Right, moving on to our formal
Thank you very much.
apologies.
Good job you saw that.
We have two, Isabel through illness, and Colin is on holiday. Can we accept that? Thank you. Just take it. Yeah. Has anybody got any declarations of pecuniary interest or personal interest or judicial interest? Malcolm?
Yes. Item 8, 8D, lettings policy for affordable housing.
Right, okay. Anybody else? Right.
Just a normal personal one on the fact that I'm Central Island County Councillor.
Thank you. Andrea, sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
4, to consider a request for a statement or comment on developments at 2 Brent Street.
Right. Okay. And in that case, I forgot to say, we also have an apology from our clerk. But we mentioned that at the beginning. Right, confirmation of the minutes. Now we all have a copy of the minutes. Has anybody got any objections to what's been tabled? So therefore I will sign.
Thank you.
Right, moving on. Do you wish to withdraw for this point then, Andrea? We're on to item 4.
No, I'll just say not participating.
We had a request for a statement or comment on developments at 2 Brent Street. Now, I think Owen received an email about what was going on, and I think Sedgemoor have been out, the planning authorities have been out. It's out with our control anyway as a parish council. You know, any planning issues, whether it's contravention or not, is down to the planning authorities. All I would say is if people have a evidential confirmation that planning issues and any criteria or caveats that are being applied are being ignored or not being met, they should send it to the planning authorities.
But it is our right to know what when the officer came down from Sedgemoor, what we found out. Has he made a report?
He hasn't made a report to us, no.
I can certainly let members know. I mean, basically, they've been out, they had a look on site because works have started on ground clearance. And technically, ground clearance doesn't constitute the start of development because you can clear ground without planning permission anyway. So as yet, there has been no actual start on development because it's all been the sort of ground clearance and tree removal. When they came on site, they found that the works that had been done were in line with what was in the planning permission. They had an ecologist on site to make sure that they didn't do anything they shouldn't do. Apparently there are a couple of trees that are down for removal which haven't been fully removed because there were some birds already started nesting in there, so they left them. So those are still on site. And as things are at the moment, my understanding is that what they've done is within, there's nothing gone beyond what they should have done. But as I say, technically there is no planning start on site because it is ground clearance works which doesn't require planning permission anyway.
It's just that as a councillor, and being involved with the affordable housing down at Station Road, the way we've moved on from there over the last 2 or 3 years at a leisurely pace, and this site here is going to have affordable housing, it doesn't compare one with the other. That's what worries me all the time. We've had nothing to do with that site, yet it's supposed to contain affordable housing. So either Sedgemoor have come down here and bamboozled us with Station Road and told us a load of nonsense about what's got to be done. Because I understood it had to be with the affordable housing, had to be with the blessing of the council, the parish.
No, I mean the issue that was raised and has been raised to do with planning was the whole policy of P4, which allows for development outside the boundary providing there's a community benefit. But no policy P4 has never done and doesn't do is give a veto to the parish to say if we don't want it, it's a no. It still has to be assessed on planning merits. Now obviously we moved things forward on the other site because we were trying to do that as a priority site, but that doesn't stop anyone else coming in on any other site in the village. If they can meet the planning criteria, then that is something they can do. Not all sites will necessarily happen in the way that we're trying to take forward Station Road. So for example, there's been sites in Barrow, in Pollitt and in Mark where developments of affordable housing have happened without the explicit support of the parish council because they met the rest of the planning policies.
But the issue is that we had a comment from, Owen had received a comment from a resident about expressed concern about trees being taken down and in an apparent inappropriate manner.
Yeah,
And
I've got a lack of knowledge there because I didn't purposely join up on Twitter or I didn't join up on Facebook. And every time Owen sends me an email about next door and your neighbour, I just dump it in the dustbin because I'm just not interested.
But it wasn't on that with respect, it was an actual email from a resident directed to the clerk, which he circulated. And the point really was that we as a council have no powers over stopping or interfering with the planning process or indeed judging whether infringements have been made. We can certainly be a conduit to report it if necessary, and any items should be down to Sedgemoor, and that's what's happened, and that's why they've been out to site to do it.
I think, Chairman, it's the same as any other development that's happened in the village. If we become aware of something that we think is happening which shouldn't be happening, we report it to enforcement and they come out and have a look. Yeah.
Can I go back to the Station Road development? Nothing seems to be happening at all, does it, at the moment? I wonder why it's going on the agenda.
I think there are some other issues on there. Perhaps we can talk about it later on, please.
Fine, thank you.
Right, so matters of report then, down to Bob. County or district, whichever order you wish to do it in.
I'll keep them fairly short because there's quite a lot for us to get through tonight. In terms of both councils, obviously this is budget time as it was with us setting our precepts. In terms of Sedgemoor, the budget increase that we've gone for this year is £5 on the council tax, which is about 3.5%. That is the increase that will be coming through.
That's D, is it?
That's on a band D. Yeah. So, also obviously, as I mentioned to you before, Sedgemoor has looked at invest and sort of borrowing to invest in terms of commercial property, which we've now started to do, and the first set has gone ahead and is now bringing in an income over and above obviously the cost of the borrowing. So that will be helping to keep down increases in future years. Both county and district have benefited from the fact that they're in this business rate pilot scheme, which is certainly helping on finances this year. We still don't know because government haven't given us the decision yet as to what they're going to do with business rates. They've been talking about it for a number of years, how they're going to hand back business rates to the districts and the counties. What we know is they've reduced their grant that they're paying to us. What we don't know is what they're replacing it with. So as of now, we no longer have the revenue support grant, which used to be equivalent to a third of our total income at the councils. For this year, as I say, we've got this pilot that's working on 75% of business rate retention. It was going to be 100% originally, and government decided they wanted to hang on to 25% more. Until I think Brexit is out of the way, there's an awful lot of bandwidth of government that is being taken up, and they're not moving on some of these other things that we needed to be getting information through. So we'll hopefully hear later in the year as to exactly how we're going to be funded for next year. In terms of district, the other thing that's gone through, which is of major interest to us, is the local plan. I've updated you at various points that obviously it's been working its way through the system. It went to the inspector, and I reported back last time that she'd given it the go-ahead with some amendments. That has now gone through full council and is now adopted, so the new local plan is now the plan that everything is working to in terms of development management. On the county, in terms of the finances, the increase is 2.99% for the council tax element, plus an extra 1%, which is going